Hey, friends, welcome back. Thanks for joining the conversation today. This one's not so much of an oopses and fall downs about the Christian culture. I mean, to an extent, maybe it is, but I was recently asked to read a book and review it, which I never did. But the concept of the book is about men being disconnected and not having tight connections and close friendships. And I thought, dang, the value of that is pretty high. So maybe that's something we could talk to. And so I sat down with my best friend Chris, and we decided to just talk about the value of friendship and maybe where it comes from and things like that. So that's what we're going to talk about today here on Christianese. Hope you're ready. Let's roll. Coop, we got a guy's weekend together.
I know.
It's so good.
Miracles do happen.
They do. I love it when we get to hang out, and we've been talking about this for a while, and we're bringing in the friends from the interwebs, and they're going to hang out with us and just talk about this because guy friendships are kind of rare.
Yeah, they are.
And they're so important.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, Stella, I think I told you this, Stella said that you and I remind her of David and Jonathan in the Bible. They were home skillets. They may not have called it that.
Probably had different terms for that.
But they were super tight, and like they did stuff together. They sharpened each other. And so I see what she means. I mean, we're buddies, but it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think where I'd like other people to see the value is, man, there's good. That's it. I want people to see the value of having a real good friendship, and we kind of model that, maybe.
I think by God's grace we hopefully are.
Hopefully, I mean, sometimes we're a little much for people because we're obnoxious.
We have our moments.
Well, we could tell stories about that.
We could. We could.
What story comes to mind? I mean, maybe we back up. We've known each other for 20 plus years.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a long time.
For you, it's been a long time. It's been a joy for me, but you just been. So our friendship really started. We were introduced by your wife's cousin, and we played a game. Do you remember this? We were at
Walton
Janet's, and we played what was it? White Elephant?
I don't know. I thought maybe it was Pictionary or something. We were like totally interactive.
Probably did that too, and we were odd.
I just remember laughing a lot.
A lot, yeah. My stomach hurt the next day. In fact, it still hurts from that 20-some years ago. But so we've been friends for a long time. We got introduced, and it slowly developed. It's just been in the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. I don't know. Time doesn't matter anymore.
No,
but I've noticed anyway, and give me your thoughts on this. A deepening between the two of us, where we've got a lot of characteristics that are David and Jonathan-esque. How has that developed?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is a deep friendship really has the investment of time, and you really can't develop like a closeness with anyone unless you spend time with them.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you and I have kind of allowed ourselves to let down over the years because when in real friendship, true friendship, you have the ability to not try to put on maybe a face or a facade of somebody that you think people would want you to be, but rather you get to be your true authentic self. And sometimes that's pretty and sometimes it's not. But I think true friendship is that raw connection with somebody where you get to be your authentic self. You get to be the person that your creators designed you to be.
Yeah.
And walking with that person through the ups and the downs. And I think for you and I, it's just, we've had wonderful opportunities to connect, whether it be camping or, adventures, road trips, watching basketball, sitting around a campfire. And through that fellowship, that time together, you just develop a real sense of connection. And that, again, just going back to the word time, you just can't buy that. That just
Mm-hmm.
happens by investing in one another.
Well, and that's what was coming to mind when you said time together. There's people that have spent a ton of time together, but they don't necessarily use it as an investment to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we connect on. We started investing in similar ways. We try to sharpen each other as dads,
Mm-hmm.
as husbands, and so there's an element of the investment that's challenging, where we challenge the other fella.
Yep.
So that openness has to be able to be there in order for us to,
Vulnerability.
yeah, the vulnerability piece. Was talking with another guest on the podcast about the value of vulnerability. He was speaking to it in music, but it plays the same. And we were talking a little bit about there's a researcher we've talked about her, Brene Brown,
Mm-hmm.
that talks about the power of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in friendship, oh my goodness, it's scary to when you feel like, I don't know if we're at that level yet, and then you find that you are,
Mm-hmm.
and there's it's like discovering a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no rainbow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's an element of trust that you have to build,
Yeah.
in order to then have that foundation to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And again, going back to time, you just can't. It's kind of like, I have the analogy of like walking out on a frozen lake. You have to be confident that that lake, that frozen ice, is going to hold you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to hold you if you trust that that lake is frozen solid. And
Mm-hmm.
the only way to know that is to watch that lake freeze over time. And come late winter, you're ready to go out and ice skate, or you're out, go out and sled, or whatever you're going to do on the lake,
Mm-hmm.
because you trust that it's solid.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that goes back to time and investment, watching,
Mm-hmm.
listening,
Yeah.
caring,
Mm-hmm.
all of those elements that eventually allow you to take that risk and be more vulnerable, because you and I didn't start that way.
No, not at all.
And
We started as laughing partners.
that's right. And it's healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
We need more of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about our friendship is we get deep, but we also have a lot of lightheartedness. And, when one of us is going through a tough time,
Mm-hmm.
we can make light of maybe elements of that to help each other walk through that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because laughter, we know it's not only emotionally and psychologically healthy, but it's physically healthy too.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you laugh so hard that you sweat.
Yes,
We've done that.
that's right.
So one of the things tying into this, I promise, it's not just me rambling on about some who knows what thing. We were at the coast, and we laughed. We were playing pool, and we just got silly, and I was literally laughing so hard that I was sweating.
Uh-huh.
But that same trip was a trip of vulnerability.
Uh-huh.
Because the next night I was struggling with, and not just me, Raylan and I were both having a similar struggle in parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I ugly cried in the living room in that cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And you sat with me, and you didn't, that was one of the things that I took home. I said, in the beginning, as I was ugly crying and wetting down their couch with tears, you just sat there and heard me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I in communication in general, that's always super beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
But as you grow in trust for a brother,
Mm-hmm.
I've got my brother Corey,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've got you,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've got brothers-in-law too. But you're like Jesus in that sense. I forget where it was.
Careful. That's a little
Christian easy.
Well, I might be. That's a high bar there.
Well, he said that I can't remember where this was, and maybe I should have looked this up, but I'm rambling. That there is one who sticks closer than a brother, and that's obviously Jesus. But we have a similar bond in that sense that we are close like brothers.
Yeah.
And
No
I
doubt.
really do mean that, not just to butter you up and try to make you cry on the recording, but also because I think people should see a value in two guys that have a deep connection and a real love for each other.
For sure.
That's not just just your run-of-the-mill love. I don't know. There's a lot of different kinds of love.
Mhm.
We've talked about that before.
Mhm.
So,
Well, you hit on something earlier that
Yeah.
when we were at the coast that, you know, sometimes we just need to be with one another.
mhm.
And I'm not always good at that. My wife will tell you that, she'll be straight up that I'm not always good about just being with her in the moment.
Mm.
Sometimes it's hard to not want to fix it, especially as
Sure.
guys, we have this innate desire. I think it's a God-given desire as we're problem solvers, we're fixers. And sometimes when we're with someone who's struggling, it can be very easy to shift into that fix mode
Mhm.
and versus just listening. And when you're listening with someone and you're just quiet, you're being with them. And that's oftentimes more powerful than words.
Oh, for sure.
Because sometimes people don't need your advice. They don't need your expertise or your suggestions. They
No.
just want they just want to know that someone's there.
Mhm.
And they may in fact figure it out themselves through their own journey, but the fact that you took the time to be with them and I don't think our culture does a very good job of teaching empathy
No, it doesn't.
or sympathy. It's kind of like the, get over it culture, right? And, oh, you're being too emotional. Oh, that's just too touchy-feely. But, God created us to be emotional beings. He
Yep.
created us to be vulnerable. He created us to have feelings.
Mhm.
And we are created to reflect his image by being with one another, even in the most difficult times.
Mhm.
And part of that is just being quiet and listening.
Yeah. And that trust that builds from that,
Mm-hmm.
at least what my observation is that when that trust is built, when you know that you can offload all the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can go, since I trust you, give me some input on what direction might be a good idea from
Yeah.
your perspective. I can take it or leave it. It's not going to hurt your feelings,
Right.
or it's not going to offend you, or whatever the choice phrase of the day might be on
Mm-hmm.
that. But it's more a matter of, now I trust you enough to say this, and that causes some depth.
Yeah.
So I love that. Another question I had thought of before we hit record was, so without using, you were cautioning me about using Christianese on my own podcast, Chris. But what's built our friendship in non-Christianese terms? They might sneak in there though. It's okay.
I think shared experiences.
Yeah.
We go out and we love to practice with our guns and practice our shots,
Mhm.
and just because we enjoy that type of activity,
Mhm.
we enjoy hiking, and
Mm.
we share the love of creation
For
and just the
sure.
beauty of the light reflecting off the branches or the mountains or the smell of the air as it's blowing through the trees. Those experiences, because we are created. I mean, I hate to use that word over and over, but
Yeah,
I think
that's what it is.
it is what it is. We are created to resonate with those things,
Mhm.
especially his creation. And so by sharing those experiences together, that does deepen a bond between two people because
Mhm.
you begin to see what the other person enjoys and what the other person desires in terms of experiences, and you often begin to align yourself with those shared desires and experiences.
Mm.
And so whether it's going out for target practice, or it's hiking or biking, or going on a road trip and just playing great music together.
We're cooking delicious meat.
Yes. Yes, in fact, today is a special day.
It's very special. It's brisket day.
It's brisket day. So, I can smell my clothes here. I smell like mesquite. Mesquite. But I guess that there could be worse smells.
Yeah, and I don't want that smell to go away. I'm enjoying it so much.
Yes.
Oh man, it's gonna be delicious.
It is.
We're getting off track though.
I know.
But it's a shared experience.
Our listeners are going to get hungry, and we need to. I feel bad
That's all
for
right.
them.
They can.
They'll just
they
come
can
back for
run
more.
out. Yeah, they can come over to Redmond.
That's right.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought of in terms of shared experiences and things like that, and in my mind, it's like there's so many top things in our friendship that are wonderful and enjoyable. Is we dream together.
Yeah.
Like, what kinds of trips can we take our families on?
Uh-huh.
What can we do together that's crazy?
Mm-hmm.
what if we had all the money in the world, what would we do? All those types of things. And it's fun to just, well, we connect on it. And there's a connection, together, that we go, if we could do this, that would be pretty rad.
To quote an 80s term.
To quote an 80s term, baby.
You got to keep the radness involved in the center.
What if it's bad? Is that early 90s?
Well, it's probably late 80s
Late
too with
80s?
Michael Jackson, because he really made the term.
He did.
Jackson is all about being bad.
Yeah.
Doing
Don't
the
make me
moonwalk.
sing that right now. We don't have backup.
No, we
music.
don't. We'd have to edit way too much.
Oh man, the editing process on this one's gonna be fun. What else comes to mind? Like, what's built our friendship? Maybe just top things about our friendship that have really brought us to being awesome.
Well, I would say that watching each other and participating in parenting. It's an adventure. Just being an adult and having to get a job and live in the real world and be responsible and do the right thing and try to be a great father or husband. But you add in kids to the factor, and you add in, as they grow and they change, how to shepherd them, how to guide them, how to encourage them, how to listen to them when you just want to fix it. Especially me, it's like, if my kids have a problem, I got the solution, but they may not want that solution, or may not be the right solution. And so I think you and I have been able to, our friendship has definitely deepened because we've walked through some pretty tough parenting situations as our kids have developed and grown, and the stages that they go through, which we all have done. Really, the need for having a brother who you can bounce ideas off and relate to one another in those times of trying to grow and shape our kids into the best possible contributors to society as possible. I think that is something that has given you and I another layer in our friendship, is just the fact that we're both dads. We're both working our butts off every day, and we're stressed out with that alone, let alone bringing in kids to the factor, and how to balance our time and our energy with our family to be the best dads we can be. And that's not an easy job.
No. And you mentioned just the adventure of life changes. So we've both been married over 20 years, and that the dynamic of changing
I
humans.
Did tell you that.
Of
I did
marriage.
say that miracles do happen, right?
Miracles do happen, right?
Right.
So,
that my wife has put up with me for over 20 years.
So, your wife has put up with you for 25.
Well, actually, it's going to be 27.
Shut your pie hole.
27 years in July.
Good night, Tara.
That means I'm old.
Tara, if you're listening, you're going to be sainted.
Yes, a special place in heaven. It's not just kindergartner teachers. It's also my wife.
Yeah, no kidding. But that's another thing that we come back to is, I'm not sure how to navigate this within marriage, because it grows, it changes. There's always new dynamics to it, and being able to go, I'm struggling with this part of being the right husband. I mean, how many times have we talked about, I feel like I'm failing in this area, and we bring it to each other, and we hear each other out. We bounce the ideas off of, and you were getting at something there a little bit ago about how we can throw ideas out, and then we can hear the good in it, but also go, well, here's what I don't necessarily agree with on that. And we can push each other.
Yeah.
The fact that we can say to each other, I don't think you're right, and not get our undies in a twist about it, and receive it, but it goes back to that trust thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an element of deep friendship that, again, doesn't happen quickly, right? It happens over time. But being able to call each other out on our junk, or being able to say
I've
things.
been meaning to talk to you about stop calling me out of my junk. That's mean.
But I mean, I was at a men's conference, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And this, just all men the whole weekend. There was study. There was times alone where you just kind of hike around and just reflect on life. And the speaker said at one point during the weekend, he said, how many of you have over 10 friends? And so most people raised their hands. And then he said, okay, how many people have 7 friends that they think are pretty close. A few hands went down. And how many people have 5 friends that are you're left, right, and center about them, and few and fewer hands went down. And his whole point was, he said, we were created to only have maybe a small handful on one hand, maybe 2 to 3 really close individuals in our lives, other men in our lives, outside of our spouses, of course, and our relationship with our Creator. But having 2 or 3 men in our life that we can actually say the hard things to, they can say the hard things to us. We can challenge each other, like you mentioned earlier. If you really think about it, at the end of the day, unfortunately with social media, it presents this message that we're supposed to have 10,000 likes on some post, or all these different thumbs up, and that really skews the reality of friendship and relating with one another. That doesn't happen but more than 2 or 3 people in a lifetime, because it requires the elements we've talked about: time, energy, focus, shared experiences. You're not going to have time in your life to develop that with more than 2 or 3 individuals. And so who are those individuals in your life that you feel align with who you are and what you want to be as a person, as a contributor to your community and to this world? There's going to be 2 or 3 people that you end up really investing in, and those 2 or 3 people are like gold. You mentioned you have another guy. I have a couple guys as well, and outside of you, but really it's 2 or 3 people. I've told my kids, I said, listen, you have a lot of friends in high school. You will have only 2 or 3 true friends, and those true friends come with the ingredients that we've talked about today.
You know how I love cliches. They're my favorite thing. With heavy sarcasm. I use them because a lot of times they come out of truth. Raylan stumbled on one. Actually, I think, so my wife was talking with a friend of hers, and they had heard together that there's friends, what is it? Friends for a reason. So they just come in this certain period of your life. Friends for a season. So high school, we've all got friends that we were great friends with in high school, and we haven't spoken to them in 25, 30 years.
Right.
But then there's friends for life.
Yeah.
Friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for a lifetime. And those that lifetime ones, those are the ones that are iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I think that men tend to draw back from that, though. So a lady from church gave me a book to review, and I haven't done it yet, V, if you're listening. But it's about the disconnected man. And a lot of us are so focused on being the provider that we neglect that 2 or 3, up to 5, maybe on a good lifetime, that you have those deep, meaningful friendships that you have value from them and they have value from you. That's that mutual benefit, valuable friendship. But we don't necessarily invest in those.
That's right.
We stay kind of on the peripheral as far as relationships go. And I've noticed, at least from my observation, this is not scientific, but when guys aren't connected, they go off the deep end.
They do.
So there's a real need for true, deep, meaningful connections. I don't know how to make that work. I think, if I were to think of 2 hows that could happen, because I don't want it to just talk about how cool things are or how problematic things are, but where we see an issue, I think, especially like church society, men have this, and well, the whole church has this tendency to portray life as just dandy until everything explodes. So if guys were to go, I need that. I recognize that even from a cognitive level, and just say, I need to be connected to other dudes who get me, and
I get them,
and I get them, and some that may disagree on perspectives, so that I can receive their feedback and they can smack me around a little bit.
I like to do that to you.
I know you. That's why this bruise on my jaw It's not here
we're not
so
supposed
much,
to talk
and
about
not
that.
so here, but right here.
Not so much here, but right in this region here.
I like to take bear claws 2 at a time.
Like JoJo the circus clown. But you're hitting on something that I think is kind of ties into that, is that with social media and our world being so digital now, is that we have been programmed to disconnect, and we think we're connecting. So we think by messaging somebody on our phone or on an app that we're somehow connecting. Even if we're texting it back, oh yeah, we stay connected, we're back and forth, we're texting. No, that's not connecting.
No.
Now, we have to get back to, unfortunately, it's getting back to the basics. Our society has gotten so virtual.
Yeah.
With unfortunately, with the pandemic and all of that, there was a lot of Zoom, right? And we were even more addicted to our phones because that was how we communicated. It's time to sort of wake ourselves up and realize we were designed for physical connection. And I'm not talking about in the sexual manner. I'm talking about being in the same room, in the same car, on the same hiking trail, at the shooting range together, whatever it is. We have to be physically present and emotionally present with that individual if you want to have a friendship that's going to last and it's going to produce the fruit that's going to actually be a benefit to you and to that other person.
And really give that value that we all need and should want. So I think that's where I see maybe a disconnect is, okay, I see that that's valuable and I need that, but to want it and go out and build it it's a different challenge. It's a challenge. I'm not saying it's easy to find somebody that you can really connect to.
Well, it takes risk.
It does. It does take risk. I think another thing that that is valuable in that is having the support. I think for both of us, we have the what's the word I'm trying to think of? We have the benefit of having wives that know that there's a value to that.
We have that support.
We have that level of support. So, ladies, if your husband is trying to get a friendship and is building that, and you see some value in it
with another guy.
Granted, he shouldn't spend every Saturday all day every weekend with his home skillets, but if he's meeting with somebody on a regular basis that they're mutually giving value to each other, you're going to get a better dude at home.
Yeah.
You're going to get a better husband. He's going to be a better dad.
Absolutely.
As long as the guy's not a turd ball.
Right.
That's the new friend.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be somebody that builds you up, somebody that is encouraging you, somebody that challenges you in a positive manner, to where you feel when you leave that time together, you feel like that was rejuvenating. It was encouraging.
Yeah.
It was keeping you in the right mindset. So when you go back to your family, you're in the right mindset, and you're focused on what you need to do when you get home.
For sure. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've enjoyed when we go camping and we take the kids and all that, and Paul and his kids come, is Paul's encouragement. He's different from our Labrador golden retriever mentality, but he's so solid. And when he says something that's encouraging, you go, I feel like a mountain is growing inside of me and I can accomplish the world.
Or not.
Well, maybe something like that. But Paul's he's good with that he can give that piece.
Man, a few words, but when he speaks,
for sure.
Yeah.
Do we want to share any of our dumb stories on how we've connected? Like maybe something from camping. Do you remember when we were camping on the Metolius, and it was cleanup time, because the deal was the dads would cook and the kids would clean up, and they were fine with it because it meant they didn't have to prep anything all day. But then Stella and Ellie went down to the river to clean Jim's cast iron skillet.
Oh yes,
and they soaped it up. I've never seen Jim upset, but with his cooking stuff.
I didn't get to see his expression, but
Oh.
I heard it. He asked the girls, did you use soap on the cast iron skillet? And then just stared at him.
And the looks on their face slowly just dropped from, that was fun, we were out in the woods by the creek, yay, to, oh no.
Oh, shoot.
We've upset Uncle Jim.
Oh, his face tells us everything.
Yeah, we are busted.
So note to self, anyone who's listening, soap and cast iron skillets are not supposed to mix.
No. You
Yeah.
want to keep that seasoned.
Kind of like friendship. You got to keep it seasoned.
You got to keep it seasoned.
And it's got to have a little spice.
Oh, that's kind of like what we put on that brisket.
Yes. It's got to have a little kick.
What's another crazy one?
Well, I just think it's fun. Like when we're down camping on the Metolius, the water is, if you haven't been to that, if you ever haven't been to that part of Oregon, if you're not from the Northwest and you want to come visit, come over to Central Oregon, find the Metolius River, go down to it. It is as clear as a glacier, that bluish clear color that you see, say, like an emerald color you might see like in the Caribbean. It literally is that color. In fact, it's a really hard river to fish in because the trout, the steelhead, the fish that are in there can see you a mile away. And they're like, yeah, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Buddy.
Yeah, good luck. Nice try. But what's really fun, if you're careful, is in some of the more shallow areas where there's not the rapids. The water was probably 42 degrees, somewhere in there, 45 degrees. It's just above freezing. And in the summer, taking the plunge and jumping in, the amount of blood and the amount of oxygen that leaves your body in one fell swoop jumping into that water.
It's painful.
It's
so cold.
But it's a mixture of pain and pleasure at the same time.
It's rejuvenating.
Yeah, you feel like a whole brand new person, and you can't even breathe.
I didn't understand how the kids were doing it over and over again. They would go over by that log and throw the football out in the middle of that little
lagoon.
Yeah, and they would jump out into the negative 43 degree water. That might be an exaggeration.
By about 43 degrees.
It felt like that. It felt so cold, and I'm just like, how are you going to live after this?
Uh-huh.
But the kids are. They're lunatics.
Well,
all of them.
I think when you're a teenager, your brain isn't fully developed yet. So, but then why were we doing it? We were doing it too.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
Let's maybe we shouldn't embarrass her. Maybe I should edit that one out. No, I gotta keep that stuff in there.
But it's such an analogy on life too. Like I hate, if you look at that experience of pushing yourself, because nobody wants to jump off the log into the water,
right.
But pushing yourself out there and just saying, okay, I'm going to do this. There's something in our innate self that for some people it's more desire than others. I know for me, it's a pretty big desire I do a lot of adventurous things. Right. And, but throwing yourself out there in that water for a brief, even if it's a brief moment, it kicks something inside you that ignites something inside you that's just makes you feel more alive. And I think so often we're so tired and we can be beaten down. Let's be honest. This world can beat you down. And, whether it's the heaviness of work, whether it's the heaviness of family, finances, especially right now with our economy, let's be honest. We need things in our lives, whether it's the silliness of jumping off a log into freezing water or jumping out of an airplane, something that's going to kickstart our hearts and our minds to help us feel alive again.
Yeah.
And it's important. We're physically created beings. We need that. And for everybody, that might look different. For you, it might be, something way more conservative. It may not be jumping off a log in a freezing cold river, but it might be doing something that does take, a little bravery. But in doing that and stepping out like that, it creates an aliveness in us that often we just don't get in our current culture. It's almost like, the same routines week after week, and it kind of, again, life can kind of beat us down. But taking time in these adventures with friends that we trust to do things to push us, even silly things like we just talked about. But I think that's so important to a part of who we are as individuals, as well as to friends, is to have those shared experiences that sometimes drive us out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then those create memories, and those create laughter, and that creates an even deeper bond of memories that you have with that individual.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself, but you said it, so I didn't have to say it better.
That's perfect.
So yeah, conditions are perfect. That's good stuff, Coop.
Hey man, yeah, thanks for
I'm
inviting me in.
I'm glad that we got to do this. Well, I'm glad that we got to do Dude Weekend too.
I know we gotta check that brisket.
We do. Everybody want to come over? Well, it'll be consumed by the time this goes on.
Yeah, most likely.
Sorry, not sorry. All right. We're gonna hang it up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been good, man. Thanks.
Man, Chris and I had such a good time. We did enjoy that brisket, and it was fantastic. But we laughed and we had a good time. We talked about lots of things that were important to our lives and so on. And just closing that out, I thought of a quote that I had read from C.S. Lewis. The mark of a friendship is not that help will be given when the pinch comes. Of course it will. But that having been given, it makes no difference at all. You know, Coop and I have a relationship, and I really hope that others have these relationships, men and women both, that we go out and we have relationships with people that really make us better. Whether we need something from them or not, that's not the big kicker for this type of relationship. But it's just that we get to be together and go deeper and enjoy a life together as friends that makes us both better. So, I this ending phrase that I always use, I love you, and I truly do. But I love you so much that I want you to have deep friendships. Maybe you have a close friend that you want to go deeper with, and you want to continue to develop that and have something similar to what Coop and I have together as our friendship. Go out and give to them. Go out and be with them. Hang out with them. Laugh with them. Laugh, for crying out loud. Laugh. It's so medicinal to our souls. And do adventures together, and your bond will grow deeper, and you'll find value in that. So hope this is a good conversation, that you maybe enjoyed it, and maybe I will review that book, because men in particular do end up being disconnected, and there's danger in that, but we can find some level of solace in close friendships. That being said, have a great day. I love you.